Empower 11, the best of its kind in a highly transformative time. Are you empowered? Ready to turn your life up to 11? Awaken the life of who you are on the inside to match the life you were meant to live on the outside. Empower 11. Now is your time.
Power 11 Radio. Greetings, world, and welcome to Empower 11 Radio. Today is September 19th, and this is the live 1-hour Empower 11 Radio show. For more information, you can always go to empower11.com. That's empower, the number 11.com. You can go there and download a free audio and check out everything we're doing and what's going on and all our programs and everything that's that we have out there to empower you. And if you're listening to us live right now, chances are you're listening to us on Spreaker, which is our platform that can also be downloaded as an app to your smartphone, your iPhone or your Android phone. It's a free app, and make sure you get that, and you can check us out there. And immediately after this radio show is broadcasted, it gets uploaded to iTunes for podcasts there, so you can always check out all of our shows on iTunes. And also, don't forget to check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/Empower11. And also wanted to tell you about our Empower 11 Wealth album that is out right now for your download, or you can get it physically by going to iTunes or Amazon. And on Amazon is where you can have it physically sent to you as a CD if that's what you prefer. My name is Jack Voorhees, and I am here today with my beautiful and talented partner that just gets me excited every day to wake up and live a life of inspiration with my wonderful partner, Ann Ribley.
Hello, Jack Voorhees. I am honored to be with you on this show. I'm excited about today's topic, which is empower relationships, because let me tell you, you are an awesome partner to be collaboratively creating with, to be sharing my life with, and to be building great business enterprises with. So I'm honored to be doing this with you. I also want to say thank you to our listeners, to you out there who have taken the time out of your day to listen to our show. We appreciate you honoring this relationship that we're building here.
And we'd love to hear feedback from you. Always good to get the emails. You can send us an email at info@empower11.com, and let us know what you liked about our show, what you're
implementing.
Any struggles you're having. If you're listening to any of our meditations or inspirational audios, how that might be affecting you. We would love to get your feedback, possible topics for shows, what have you.
What you'd like to hear more of.
Yeah. So today we're talking about empowering relationships. And now I think like the general conception of when you think about relationships, you think about a relationship with your significant other. But we have all kinds of other relationships. We have relationships with our children, the rest of our family members. We have relationships with friends and colleagues and partners. And the show is about how to turn those up to 11, how to make sure those are really empowering you. And if they're not, then steps that you can implement in your life in order to make them more empowering.
in Power 11 is about getting that oneness of who we are on the inside to be a matching vibration to the experience we want to have on the outside. And so what's great about taking this concept of relationships and whatever that circle of relationships that we have in our lives, like what Jack was mentioning with children, family and friends and colleagues and coworkers, it's getting those relationships that are capable of being empowered so that they are in a match, so that what we have to give on the inside of who we are to those relationships on the outside, that we create some vibrational harmony, which raises the vibration up to 11, where it's empowering. And there's many facets that make up what really is an empowered relationship.
Mm-hmm. It's, it can be promoting one another's spiritual growth, being a supportive contributor to each other in a mutually beneficial way, where you have this, where we have like respect for each other's opinions, because you know that they're only in the best interest of each other.
I know that was when we were, first getting to know each other, and we were, we started out with us working together, and then it grew into a love relationship. I know that was something that, you mentioned frequently, always about relationships. And, initially for us, we were starting out just in a working relationship. And you would always comment that for relationships to work, it's always got to be mutual beneficial for each party. And
for a healthy relationship to grow, whether it's a business relationship or it's a personal relationship, it has to be mutually beneficial, and that is supportive. So when two can lean on each other when they need to, and it has to be supportive in both ways. If it's not, it's just going to fall over.
Yeah, that's where the energy that's being reciprocated works to hold the structure together. And I know that I learned a lot of this about you because we were sharing and working on different stuff, you would always talk about this from a business aspect, and that was always some of your like secret mojo that you always would bring to any kind of business encounter. Is you always knew for this to work, it had to be mutually beneficial. And I know I have to tell you that gave me so much respect to always hear how you conducted different things in business and how that translates, because that tells a lot of how a person is in a personal life. And I know initially, like when we were just working together business-wise, and you would not only talk about it, but you had demonstrations of it, of how you handled different business things in your life, that speaks a lot about how you conduct yourself personally. And I know that was highly attractive to me. And I know that for those out there who are looking to empower relationships in their lives, there's Empowered 11 is about that congruency. So it's getting congruent. Like if we come from a place that we are going to be mutually beneficial to the people that we have a relationship with, it's not segmented that, I conduct myself this way in this kind of relationship and I conduct myself this kind of way in a different kind of relationship. It's actually activating and waking up all these energy patterns in us so that we're congruent. We are clear. We know how we want to be conducting ourselves, and we're not being driven by these unconscious habits or behaviors that maybe another person is bringing to us.
Yeah. There was a... when we were talking about the business, there was a situation that I was in, and I was working with these. They're kind of like sharks. If you ever watch the show Shark Tank, they're investors, and they would come into businesses and do some bailouts and stuff, or come to the rescue, and they knew that they had the business owner over a barrel, and they could really drive this tremendously hard bargain. And I mean, this guy he could either say, yay, or, no, my business is going under. So they would often try to go in and crush him with this deal. Mm-hmm. But I knew that if you crushed the person too much, you didn't give him enough stake in his own business and everything, then it wasn't going to take off. It had to be mutually beneficial in order for it to thrive and survive.
So then we can translate that, because I know when you were telling me different stories that you were in, that you encountered business-wise like that, if you can translate that into our personal lives, that, it can't be overpowering. It has to be reciprocating. And that's truly what the symbol of in the Empower 11 is to create that wholeness, which comes from not overtaking something, not it being supportive. It feels good. It promotes the growth individually and jointly.
Absolutely. I mean, both people should leave, after having a conversation or what have you, leaving feeling good and not like one has overpowered the other. It's in incongruency. Both leave the deal feeling great. Now, I'm talking a lot about business, but it's also in any kind of relationships. I mean, if you're in a one-sided relationship where you're the one that is giving more than you're getting, then that isn't a healthy relationship. It's not it's not something that's going to make you feel good, And the thing is, though, that and we're going to touch on this a little bit later, is the double-edged sword, or I guess, is that it can't be transactional. It's got to be mutually beneficial, but not transactional. We're going to get more into the transactional part in a little bit later, but it's got to be supportive and inspiring. And when you're in that, when you have that with somebody, and it a lot of times it can develop over time, but it doesn't just happen right away, because there's this little feeling of risk, and you're just trying to feel things out and stuff. But the deal is, when you get into that place, you can be extraordinarily collaborative and creative together, and that is such a good place to be, inspiring people, helping people, and it always seems to reciprocate. Like when I go and I help somebody, when I give them business advice, personal advice, what have you, I share the wisdom. I mean, that's part of the gifts that I was given, that I've learned, that I've developed in my good spot of who I am. And of course, you're going to want to share that with the world.
Well, then that, when you talk about the transactional aspect, that, that's not as an evolved, empowered relationship. And we're going to get into that. But what reminds me of that you're saying, Jack, that's along those lines is that I had this really strong, powerful epiphany when I went on this vacation with close friends of mine, and the level of giving that they had brought to the table in this relationship. There weren't words to the gratitude I felt for. They showed up at a time in my life when I was doing a lot of course correction. I was alone with my children, financially, emotionally, physically, on all levels as a single mom. And these friends showed up in a way to be supportive and inspiring and to give. And it truly was not in a transactional kind of way at all. And I know that a lot of times when you're talking about when you give and you share from that good place, is that there's a lot of conversation, I should say, that is of a higher conversation, where people talk about getting out and being of service. And when you're of service to your fellow human beings that are here, we start to feel good about ourselves, being in a place of service. But what I experienced with these friends is that what they gave to me, and in that time for healing and the gifts that they shared, is it was beyond service. They were not servicing this friendship. They were truly, and I couldn't find the words. And then as I sat in this silent meditative place, just reflecting a heart full of gratitude for them, the words that came to mind is it's sharing. Sharing is that highest vibration that even goes higher than servicing. And when you talk about, Jack, that how you feel good just going out and sharing, it's that empowered relationships come from this place that even goes higher than just service, where maybe that can lend itself to still be transactional. But when we get into this really good place of sharing who we are, it's unattached, it's totally pure. That's when we are empowering not only the vibration in ourselves, but the vibration in our relationships.
Yeah, I know there's many people that are not great at the giving or the sharing. It is transactionally based. I mean, they're like, well, I did this for him, he should do this for me, or I'm keeping score and stuff. But I know that the best giving, or what I had to offer somebody. I mean, there was a point in somebody's life where I was able to do something pretty grand for them, and the thing was, I did it in an anonymous way. Mm-hmm. So the guy still has no idea that that it happened in this way, and that his life was about to get changed in not such a good way. And I was able to come in and prevent this. So I did it in this anonymous way. So he never knew that this big benefit came, and he never knew who it came from, and I never had to tell him, because it was the purest giving that I've ever done, and it was loving, and it's a I don't even know if I can put it in words, but it is a jewel. It was such a jewel. And it still is. But if I would tell him about it, the jewel would go away. And the thing is, I mean, I like, I want to put it out there. Like, you want to feel good, do something like that. Like, I'm somebody that will put the coins in the parking meter when I see that somebody is over expired, and I know it's like, I think it's illegal, but I just want, you never know how that's going to affect somebody's day. You put that coin in there, and they didn't get that ticket, and it didn't ruin their day. And then sometimes when people's days get ruined, they ruin other people's days, and it takes out. You don't know that little act that you can do. Is just. It's so good.
So one of the first steps I feel to begin to empower relationships is to wake up and say, how can I share who I am today with my world? I mean, to even have that idea of that question in mind, because a lot of times it's told and it's great, but I think it moves it beyond the mind. When it was like, if we wake up and we say, how can I be of service today? That is great advice, but I think people can get lost in the mind on that advice. Where when you say, how can I share? How can I share from the highest place of who I am, from that purest place? I think then we're really raising beyond just the bar of where we can go, but we're really activating that truth, that core, that real source of energy of who we are when we say, how can I share today?
And what do you think it is about our relationship that is empowering?
Well, I definitely think truth is one of it, because I was talking to you about that this morning, just reflecting on the show, is that I was in a conversation with someone not too long ago, and they were asking me questions about how Jack and I, how our relationship developed, because it developed through Skype. For some of you who don't know, we had a working relationship that started out working, and we were working together on a project, and we were working together through Skype. And then how does something so divine and magical transpire that by the time him and I met in person, physically met, I mean, the love was there, and it was only an uncovering of that love. And one of the things when I was sharing the story with this person is that she had said to me, and I said, this sharing of truthfully who we were to each other. I mean, there wasn't this facade, there wasn't this pretend, there wasn't this, I'm going to be this way because I think I'll get him to be this way or like me this way, or, there just wasn't any of those fragmented energies, which is what I love about Empower 11, which is getting whole and getting truthful, because along that parallel line in our lives with love, in all of our relationships, even our relationships with work and abundance and finances, running in that line of our own truthful rising up with who we are is a parallel track of the matching possibility that's close to our hearts that will come together. And it was interesting at that time, how I was showing up to you was in a truthful, authentic way, and how you were showing up to me was in a truthful, authentic way. And when I was sharing this with this person, she said to me, And it was crazy because, she's older than me, but she had said to me, I have never in any relationship shown up from the beginning with who I am. I showed up how they thought I'd want to be, and then through time.
Or how they thought, she thought, or they, she or he thought that the other person wanted them to be.
Yeah, wanted them to be. That's what it is. She showed up in a way that she thought of how they wanted to see her and how they wanted her to be. And then what would happen is once the relationship would settle, then this person...
Truth comes out.
Yes, and the person didn't dig
Right.
that. And the thing of it is she's a beautiful person who could have a lot of love come to her, but her whole life she's spent not being able to have that love. When she was sharing that with me, I thought, wow, that's...
Oh, I see that all the time. But, about us, in our relationship, I think, a lot of it is that the work that we did before we got together on ourselves. The healing that we did, the self-development that we did separately so that we could get to a point where we were a match,
it's also recognizing it. You said that before, Jack, at another time, and I think that's powerful, is that, if you're not doing the self-work and the good shows up, can you even recognize it? Because I was watching Oprah's Soul Sunday, and she had made a comment that she's come to the realization, because we all know Oprah's an extraordinary giver. She said she's come to the realization that if you give a gift to somebody and they're not open, even though they may think they are, to truly receive, it's as if you didn't give the gift at all.
Sure, yeah. If you give somebody a book and they don't read it, then there's really no gift given there.
Yes, that's in its simplest form of what we're saying, but it's...
I like to get down to nitty-gritty. Say it like it is. There you go. But yeah, I truly believe that. That is... That is something to really be aware of. That sometimes when you're giving, it's not really a gift. It's sometimes you're like, I know this from being in recovery for all these years, that sometimes it becomes enabling. It's not really a giving; it's an enabling. And that doesn't benefit them. So you may think, oh, somebody's hurting, I'm going to pick them up. But if they're not ready to receive that gift, then they're just going to fall right back down again.
Well, I experienced this in my own personal life as I went through my divorce and the breakup of, my former husband that I was married to for 18 years. What happened is the level of giving that I was doing in the relationship created a level of enabling him to stay, unable to grow himself beyond where he was. And so in that, when I decided to no longer give in that fashion that enabled him to stay stuck, what happened is all hell broke loose. And what did that look like to the outside world? Well, it looked like I was not being the loving, giving, caring, sharing person that I was before. But I knew, and truth is, because truth is truth, I knew that is actually a higher level of love and giving, is when we don't enable. Is when we allow a person to be who they are choosing to be for themselves. And we're not trying to fix it to make it different so that we feel better in the relationship. We're not trying to fix it so the person presents themselves different so we look better to the outside world. We are accepting it in the truth of what it is, and we're not trying to make it different. And that is truly giving of a place of love and a place of compassion to allow people to live their life how they want, how they choose to.
Well, yeah, it's like sometimes you can't give people the experience. Sometimes they have to feel pain in order to not touch the stove. You can't just tell them. It's some people you can tell, that's hot, don't touch that, you're going to get burned, and they'll do it. And then other people got to experience it for themselves. And no matter how many times you're there to make sure they don't touch the stove, eventually you're not going to be there and they're going to touch the stove. But let's move on to what what it ain't.
What it is not. Because I wanted to talk a lot about this yesterday because we were planning for the show.
Yeah.
As I was feeling like the yin and yang of relationships, supportive versus depleting.
Yeah. So what it isn't? What isn't an empowering relationship? I mean, and we touched on this earlier, and it's not transactionally based. I mean, that is such a huge thing, Anne. That is like, I mean, you see it all the time that these relationships became more like
a business.
Yeah, it's like
it's not that intimate, deeply nurturing, loving, soulful.
Right, and we you were listening to this guru, on relationships on the radio that was talking about, well, just withhold sex as a tool, and I'm like, oh my God, that's such transactionally based. I mean, that's prostitution.
Yeah, it actually wasn't me who listened to it. It was a friend of mine who called me up and said, "Oh my God, I listened to this, and it's a very, very highly noteworthy speaker and on a platform that's very noteworthy." And she's like, "Anne, you need to be on this because you would never give advice like this in relationship." And she was telling me how that was the relationship advice they gave: withhold sex until they cut the grass. That was the advice.
Yeah. If you want your husband to cut the grass, then just, oh my God, this is just, I mean,
well, that's an extreme version of transactionally based, but I do think it happens on the most subtle ways that we are actually in totally.
There's no awareness. I mean, it's so subtle that it moves into a relationship that there's no awareness that this has actually happened, that your relationship became transactionally based.
You do this and you get this.
Mm-hmm.
I do this and I expect this. And I watched a show with Tony Robbins with Oprah, and he talked about it. That's a relationship he called it the horse trading mentality, where it's like as if you're trading out your services or your expectation and attributes. It's like a very low levels. And it was interesting because I've been saying transactionally based relationships for a while, but he referred to the same thing. So I know it's based on this universal understanding of our evolvement and how to move ourselves. That's a lower level vibration. Our outside world will not rise up and match the possibilities that's true in our hearts if we conduct our energies that way.
Well, and you get into this place where you're trying to guilt and shame your partner, and that's not an empowering place to be when you're, when you have to guilt and shame your partner in order to...
That's transactional. See, that's the subtle way of transaction. But we're using emotional energies in order to elicit another transaction out of them that's different than what we want. It's not based in a pure place.
So Anne, I bring you something, a glass of water or something. It's just, I don't expect anything in return, and you don't expect that you have to pay me back because I brought you a glass of water or something. I mean but people do this. People get into this place where it's like, oh crap, she did something nice for me. Now I got to do something nice for her. And that's just Yeah, I've been in it. I've been in it. Yeah, it makes me feel dirty. I want to go shower.
Well, I know that resentments are truly a way that undermine a relationship because somehow the reciprocating energy gets out of balance and gets out of tune. Mm-hmm. And in that, we have buried underneath of us in our dynamics, and this could be with a coworker, this could be with a family member, this could be with a friend, this could be with your intimate partner, your partner that you have in your marriage, or in your relationship, your intimate relationship, where resentments brew. And we go further in this in our in Power 11 Course 1, which is Take Ownership, about how those are really energetic debts that are takeaways that undermine our ability in order to be in this good place with that relationship or even with ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, they talk a lot in recovery about resentments because, I mean, they really keep you sick. These things that you hold on to from the past, and then this energy that you grasp onto, and it's like you're feeling like you're mad at somebody and you're going to hold on to this resentment because it's going to hurt them, but it actually in turn it is hurting you. You are the one that pays for having the resentment, not somebody else.
Well, let's talk about how we even choose our relationships. Because I think it's really interesting. We have our family that we're born with, and that is the relationship we're born into, is these family members.
Yeah, and sometimes we feel like we just, we have our relationships out with them because it's obligation. That we're, because this is my brother, no matter how badly he treats me or how much I can't stand him, I have to continue with this relationship because, it's an obligation.
Well, and it's not even a matter of that you don't have to continue with it. It's just that you have to be in the commandership of how you want that relationship to be. So it's empowered at the level that it's capable of actually being. And it's interesting that when we look at how we choose our relationships, and then it's also how do we choose our relationships that we, most times of people that we're working with, the friends that we have, the partner that we're with. A lot of times people think that they're not really realizing that it just is almost like you're born into it, and that there's nothing they can do about it because, my boss is a jerk and I'm just stuck with that. But the truth is, we're choosing our relationships every day. We're choosing who we are getting up to and interacting with in our days. And so it's like, let's and we're going to take our commercial break, and then let's come back and talk about how do people handle this.
And it's about how you conduct yourself too in those relationships. That you don't feel like, just because something is some way doesn't mean you have to react to it in some way. You can choose different paths in order to, it's like you don't have to react in certain ways. But we're going to get back more into that right after our commercial break. We're running a little bit behind. So we're going to give some props to Spreaker. Spreaker is our platform that we're coming to you on for this radio show. We invite you to, if you are so inclined to have your own internet radio show, you have the platform to do so with Spreaker, and we will be right back. And we are back within Power 11 Radio. So, Ann, where were we?
Well, we're talking about how choosing our relationships. That there's relationships that we have, and it's just based on convenience. It's based on history. History could be that these are my friends because that's what I grew up with, and yet they may not be serving you. It's just getting into a more of an empowered point with every relationship we have in our lives. We're choosing to interact. And so where do we get ourselves into the place that we feel empowered in our relationships? So,
well, and then you become like people you are hanging out with. You're if you're hanging out with people that aren't as high vibrational as you, your vibration will move down to match it. It will dull down your vibration.
I love the analogy that I heard J.D. Bishop. He was on Oprah's show, and he was talking about how if you're a gallon-sized giver, and yet you're hanging out with pint-sized people, you're always gonna be losing some of this energy you have because you're giving it in ways that cannot reciprocate back to you. So he was saying, grow yourself to be with gallon-sized people. Now, what does that mean? That's in our careers, that's in our relationships. And when someone's capable of becoming the expanded version of as you expand yourself, I truly believe in that flow mantra I came up with, is that which supports you will boldly step forward, and that which doesn't will gracefully step down. And that will happen with our career, with our relationships. When you grow yourself to the truth and to the magnitude of who you're meant to be, your world will match up with it. It may change its ways. So let's say, for example, because I know this is a common phenomenon that happens with people. People have certain family members that are maybe more of the pint size compared to the gallon size that they are. And how do you handle those relationships? Well, you can only handle pint-sized bites with them, really.
Yeah.
Because if you hang out there too long...
Yeah, you can't just hang out with people based on convenience. It's just like, this is just... or obligation or what have you. Now, I'm not saying to withhold friendships or anything like that, but you just, part of it is just accepting people for where they're at.
Not getting into this place of settling.
Yeah, like, I'm just going to, well, I don't want to be alone, so I'm just going to go hang out with these people that suck.
Well, then that brings us to this point that we've talked about a lot, Jack, is you getting yourself in a healthy place with your world and the people you hang out with, so you don't feel like you need recovery time in order to bring yourself back up to who you are.
Oh yeah, I was in a relationship, and it was not healthy, and when she would leave, I'd feel like like I could just breathe, and then when she, when I'd be with her again, it was like tightness in my chest or something. It was just like so unsettled. It was just so damn difficult.
And so if we need lots of recovery time, away from this person, that speaks a lot. Our body is speaking to us. It is, our minds can keep us stuck where we're not moving out of an unhealthy situation, but our bodies will be speaking the truth to us, and it'll be in how we feel. It'll feel a much more constricted and a depleting, disconnected place in ourselves. And so the more we can get in tune and in truth and live from that place, that is health. That is wholeness. And
it's balance. There's a lot of energy. Like if you're out of balance and you're struggling to stay up, that's a lot of energy. But when you're just in tune, in balance, that is a lot easier place to be and hang out in.
Yeah, I definitely, it's funny. I just went to one of my son's open school nights or whatever, and I ran into someone who I've known throughout the years with my kids growing up. So now this was at my 12-year-olds. And one of the things that she had said to me, knowing that, she's been kind of watching as I went through my divorce and now in this new love. And one of the things she said to me, and I hadn't seen her in a while, she looked at me and she's like, "Gosh, Ann, you look so relaxed." And it's just so funny. The word relaxed is because I'm always an easy flowing, happy person. That's been my normal natural state.
But I hear that all the time. When we run into your friends and you're like, "Wow, you look so relaxed." And it's like, this is how I know her. I don't know her a different way. But
it's funny because I feel like I've always been that. But what's interesting is it's true what Jack's saying is that's the common feedback I get is you seem so much more relaxed, Ann. But what I know is that what you were saying, Jack, is so true about being out of balance. It takes so much energy to stay in balance. My former husband, I was highly combative. And there was a lot of energy. He had a combative style to him. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot of energy I would always have to be counteracting that combativeness that he had. And so that's exhausting. I mean, think about that. People live people get up and go and spend their times at jobs that they have to spend with people who do this to them all day long in that work environment. And now this isn't about going out and quitting your job if that's where you're experiencing it, but it's orientating yourself from more of a truthful place where you own your power in this relationship. You put it in its proper space so that you can then begin to allow the universe to boldly step forward in ways that are supportive to you. But you got to be supportive to you first.
So we've talked a lot about We've talked a lot about what it isn't and what it should be and things like that and after going through what it shouldn't be and what it ain't, you could be at a point where you're saying, well, hey, maybe I should just be alone, and I believe there is a time for being alone. I don't think that we always have to be. I know people that jump from relationship to relationship to relationship because they're not comfortable with being with themselves. But the thing is about being in a healthy relationship that's good. I mean, the deal is that man wasn't meant to be alone. There's a reason why we're supposed to pair up. And that is to help each other be our greatest selves.
I know that it's so sexy when you say that, Jack, and I know that you said that.
Is it sexy? Yeah?
Yes, it is. It is sexy when a man knows that we're meant to couple.
Mm. Well, if it was that sexy, I'm glad that this show ends at noon, because you can have nooners at noon, right?
No, but this was funny. You said this all along when we were getting to know each other, even when we weren't as a couple, as you kept saying, man was not meant to be alone. And just, that's a warm reaching out energy, which is that giving part of you.
Yeah, well, I was at a place, after like going through and I know I've talked a bit about an unhealthy relationship. It was a point where I was just like, I'm gonna forget about love. Love, I'm taking love off the list right now. I'm gonna just keep working on my hopes and my dreams, and I'm not gonna distract myself with some love crap. So, but what I discovered is that if I lower the bar in any area of my life, I'm lowering the bar in every area. It affects every area of your life. You cannot, picture a bar, right? And picture it above, like underneath it, right? Like career and hopes and your dreams, and if you put love and you put the love all the way down and you lower that side of the bar to the bottom there, then you notice that the bar affects every area of your life. I mean, it affects your life as a whole. And I realized that I just couldn't do that I had to have love on the list.
Well, getting in alignment with empowering relationships really supports our evolutionary expansion we're meant to do. And that's that part where it is sexy that you'd say that man was not meant to be alone. And that part that is such a giver in you that shows up in a relationship, knowing that we're supposed to be there for each other's best. If you look at nature, nature shows us that alignment of empowered relationships is the best for our evolutionary expansion. Because if you look at like how something thrives or something barely survives, if you take and plant something in its wrong environment that is not supportive to its evolutionary expansion, like let's say it's more of a flower that's destined to be in a very high rainy area, and you stick it in the desert, it's going to just shrivel up and barely survive and possibly die. Where then when you place it in the environment that it belongs in that alignment, then what happens is by nature's natural course, we thrive and we survive. And that is what happens to us when we align ourselves with empowered relationships. Empowered relationships mirror that same way that nature works. That when something is planted in its right environment, by default, it thrives. And when it's placed in the wrong environment that's not coherent to its evolutionary expansion, it will shrivel up and it'll barely survive. And so we have to be diligent with our energy patterns, where we're putting ourselves, because if we place ourselves in disempowering relationships, we will barely survive and become who we're destined to be. But if we are diligent and steadfast with being honoring to ourselves and placing ourselves in empowering relationships with our friendships, with our partner who we're choosing to spend our life with, that intimate, important relationship that causes us to feel so much love in our hearts, that determines our ability to thrive.
And having this trust in another human being that you can go through this journey together with, and you know that somebody has your back, that they want the best for you, and that they're going to do everything in their power in order to support you, and you know you're going to do everything in your power to support them. Of course that's going to be empowering. When you can help each other in a supportive way, then you can open yourself up to maybe things that you need in your life. You need like forgiveness and to be healing. And when you're in a healthy relationship, even if somebody does something that doesn't feel vibrationally high, you can communicate about it, you can talk about it, you can practice this ease and flow, this yin and yang, this way of being with each other, and it's not like somebody has to win It's like I don't want to win. I mean, you can't win in a relationship by having the other one lose. I just don't feel that. Then that's not a healthy place to be.
And that's always where you've come from, and that's Jack, and then you own that in your heart, and I know that, and I've experienced that. And so as a result, I know for myself personally, by default, when you place yourself in that kind of environment where you're choosing empowered relationships, I mean, my life went through a lot of course corrections, even with different friendships. There was betrayals. There was all kinds of crazy events that happened when there was the breakup of my marriage and all the configurations that were in my life. And what I have now with you, which is an alignment with our evolutionary expansion of me just becoming more of who I am, by default, natural healing has happened through all this. And that's the empowered relationship we should be with, our intimate partner and our friends. It should have that place where it just by default, the comfort and truth of what it is causes us to heal.
Well, I just feel very blessed, and I know not everybody gets to experience this. I mean, some people are going to go through life and not find their soulmate, their match, kind of thing, and I think a lot of that is because they haven't gotten to this place within themselves first. That they're going out and they're looking for something else. They're going out and they're trying to find this something that's going to complete them, going to fill this kind of space that they need inside of them, when it's like they got to become whole first. If you look at the number 11 and the symbol of which is the symbol of Empower 11, and that you have two upright, ones that are, they can stand tall on their own, but yet together, like the tuning pieces of the tuning fork, they vibrate in harmony with one another.
So that's all of our reasons why we would want to get into this empowered relationships with all of the things that fill up our lives. And now how do we do it? I mean, that's the most important part, is to start redefining and knowing how to do this in our lives.
And I love that we do this in our show. It's like you can talk about the problem, left and right, and there's plenty of shows out there that people are going to talk about the problem and rehash and what's going on in society today and all this stuff, But it's like, give me the how-tos. Give me the show me something that's going to help it to empower me. And I will be an avid listener or watcher of your show or whatever. I will be a fan.
Okay.
But if you just go over this blah blah blah, this, and this is the problem, this is the problem, this is the problem, then you don't have me.
Okay. So get me. Tell me your how-to, Jack.
Well, I mean, there's many of them, but I think and we touched on before, it's how to attract your match. It's like it starts from the inside of you first, that getting into this really good place within yourself so that you can stand tall, so that you don't have to have somebody else that's going to completely you get to a place where you know yourself and you're confident with yourself, and that you can be yourself with another person. If you can't be yourself with another person, then it's going to be very hard for you to attract your match. If I know people that, they'll go on dates and stuff, and it's like they're nervous or whatever, so they're not able to be themselves, the truest form of themselves, because, they feel like if their uniqueness isn't of quality, then or they're afraid to be vulnerable enough to let people see the their true self, the truth of who they are, then they're going to have a lot of problems attracting their ideal match.
Oh gosh, we could actually do a whole show on getting to that true.
A whole show?
A whole show on doing being your true self. Because what you just described, Jack, I've seen this in businesses. I've seen this with, being around entrepreneurs my whole life. I've seen this where a boss shows up and they're like the cool boss and they're cooler employees and everybody's on their honeymoon. And then next thing the employee isn't really doing and then they showed up and they're the cool employee and they're trying to impress their boss. And then pretty soon, after all the dust settles and the real people emerge, now you get all this dysfunction that happens in the business because people are not showing up in their true way to get the match in their productivity out of the place.
I've been there. It's like, where's the employee that I hired? You are not that person. This is not the person that showed up and they were trying to give their best. Now they've kind of settled in, they got comfortable, and now they allowed their real self to come out. And real self isn't what I'm looking for. I'm looking for somebody that
portrayed themselves differently.
Yeah, that portrays themselves accurately.
Yeah.
So, but then this other portion. I mean, and I cannot stress this enough. This place of openness is the key, because you have to be open to attracting this right match, this vibrational match to who you are. And many people, when they see they think like they need to be more in a power position, so they need to attract somebody who's in a more of submissive, so they can be the dominant. There's lots of things to be. If you want your match, it's got to be a match, and you got to be open to accepting that match.
Well, I want to talk about, Jack, because this is a big thing to me, is like who you choose to spend your time with. And because time is our real estate. It's that piece of us that is the real estate that the clock is ticking, and as more time goes on, we can just waste our time hanging out with the wrong people and the wrong energy patterns, doing the things that do not serve us. And that is our most precious real estate we have, which is time. And if we hold self-respect and honor to our time, then we won't allow ourselves to become submissive and dominated by relationships and energetic patterns in our work environment, in our home environment, that are dominating us and just sucking away all of this time that we have in not a way that feels empowering.
Oh my God, time is precious. We have a short time on this planet. We will all be dead soon. I mean, our time is going to feel like it just went in an instant. So don't waste a moment of it. I mean, this is not... you're going to choose a partner to go through this life with, and you choose high quality, high caliber person, and you be a high caliber, high quality person.
Because it's out there. I mean, we can find our match, and people think a lot of times they have to settle. I know in my life I went through that, where we feel like we have to settle for this, and what's my problem, and this will work, but we don't have to. The more we know ourselves, the more we can activate that matching life that wants to be born and match up to us in all capacities.
Yeah, it used to be, some marriages used to be arranged and, stuff. But the thing is, people will say things like, well, he doesn't beat me or something like that, I mean, it's like, oh, well, okay, that's good enough to, hey, you find a man that doesn't beat you, that's great. You should just settle for that. Well, why aren't you happy,
There is this blissful state that we can get into in our relationships and in our work environment and what we're doing with all of our relationships. And it only comes from being in that true place and honoring ourselves and not wasting this gift of time that we have here. I want to hear you talk about, before we run out of time, knowing how to love, Jack, because...
Yeah, because that's an important thing, because, if you're trying to attract this match, you better know how to love this match, and where does this love come first? Well, it comes from inside. It comes from who you are, and being, in a place where you can learn to love and respect yourself, because if you can't learn to love and respect yourself, then you're not going to be able to give this true love to somebody else. But what I really discovered, that I really didn't understand fully love until I had my son. Now, when I looked at my son, and I brought him home from the hospital, and I'm just really just kind of settling in, and I looked at him, and I knew that I loved him more than was my capacity as a human to love. I knew that the love was coming; it was channeled through me from a higher power or what have you. This love, this was I was a conduit of it, and because I was a conduit of it, it didn't require effort, and it was immensely powerful.
Yeah, so it wasn't a place of the mind, which is so where I know the real stuff doesn't happen in the mind. It happens in that divine channeled place of the divine that comes through us. And it's not a manufactured place. And that's where the more we have to manufacture it in the mind and manufacture it with our feelings and our emotions, the more transactionally based it'll be and the less it comes from that pure divine place. And knowing how to love is accessing that true place within us where it is effortless, it is a flow, it is by natural default that it flows through us, and we don't have to work so hard at it in the mind because it's not manufactured.
So then we can be in this place of love. So we attract this person that is our match and our vibrational harmony. Then we can live in this place of love with them. And I mean, it's one thing to attract the person, but then it's another thing to be with the person day in and day out, and that requires knowing how to love, and it requires communication too. Communication is really important. You should be able to talk about it. You should be able to have a discussion and not an argument. That you're and when you're not trying to be right and you're not trying to win, that becomes a lot easier.
God, that was so comforting when you and I were together, Jack, and we had some discussions that we wanted to have that, maybe we had different viewpoints or different ideas about, and you kept holding that space saying we should be able to communicate about this. Talk about the relaxation. I mean, that's part of where I know part of me is relaxed into is that, wow, we can have a discussion and we can communicate and it can be okay.
Yeah, and we don't have to share the same point of views on everything, I mean, we're in congruency on most things, but there are things that we kind of have different outlooks on, and that's okay. And it's like I don't want to be in a relationship with me. I mean, I'm looking for a yin to my yang. I'm looking for a partnership. I mean, isn't like, I'm supposed to find somebody that my favorite color is blue. Her favorite color should be blue.
I'm happy to be a yin to your yang, Jack.
I know you are. And enjoy the differences. Enjoy the beauty in someone else. I mean, I look at Anna. I mean, I see her for the jewel that she is, for this beautiful creation. This gift is. I'm blessed. I know I'm blessed. The other day I came out and I was drinking my cup of coffee. I saw Ann out on in our courtyard by our fountain here, and she was doing her journaling, and I just sat down and I watched her, and so I just got this tear in my eye because I know how blessed I am, and to watch Ann doing what she is here to do, man. I mean, her writing, it's so who she is and what she's about, and for her to be able to sit there and do that, I know I'm living a blessed life. I know this life is a gift. It's a precious gift, and when we live in the present and we're able to be with the beautiful, supporting, loving partner that just wants the best for one another. I mean, that is the Garden of Eden. That's heaven. That's the place where we all should experience.
Well, that's a great way to end the show, Jack. I want to just wrap it up now with this closure of this Empower 11 kind of moment where wherever you're at, I would just ask you to take a minute to breathe this in, these words. And it's how to be fit with this empowered 11 state, to take this into all of our empowered 11 relationships, to empower our relationships. So whether you're driving in your car, at work, in your home, just I ask you to take a few minutes, breathe this in. I thank you for sharing this hour with us. How fit do you want to be? Every day I wake up and I aspire to be in good shape and fit for my life. It doesn't matter if you've experienced divorce. It doesn't matter if you went through financial chaos. It doesn't matter if you've been hurt by betrayal. Wake up and ask to be a channel of your highest well-being, to be an expression of that universal loving presence that pervades all of life, to be fit in heart, to be fit in mind, to be fit in body, to be fit in spiritual tone, to be fit in love and resonate with truth, to be fit with compassion and know life, and know that life knows what's true in your heart. Today I give no excuses. I am fit, and with my newfound state of fitness, I empower my relationships with myself, my loved ones, and all I choose to share with. Today I am empowering my life at 11. Today I am. See you next week.